Welcome to Business Raw Podcast with Julia Scoville. Business Raw Podcast where we share business raw, but also raw stories. All those entrepreneurial stories that you maybe never heard before, or actually you did, but you want to find strength in them. You want to find and know that it's not just you who's going through tough times and hardship. Actually, there was someone walking your shoes and maybe even more. So today, my guest is amazing person who went through many entrepreneurships, problems, successes, challenges, you name it. And hence, I really would like to interview him and share his roaring success, but also raw stories with you today. So it's Neil Harvey. Neil, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me onto the show.
Yay, I'm so happy to have you here. And Neil, we met at a property networking event. And
Yes.
when I heard your story, when you mentioned about, like your entrepreneurial story, I thought I definitely need to interview because there is so much in it. So can you give us a little bit of background and quick intro, who you are, what you've done to date, so kind of audience can get understanding better what type of experience you've got to bring to the table today?
Crikey. Well, if we go right back to the very beginning, then when I was 6, I wanted to be an inventor. But the sixth form did a pie chart and inventor was not on it. So my dream of being an inventor died. Isn't that stupid? But that's what happened. So I joined the Royal Navy when I left school because it seemed like a good idea. I'd be an admiral. The ranks on the way would be a bit tedious, but so what? Just get on with it. And then when I was at university, my flatmate pointed out that I spent more time making things than I did actually studying, which I hotly denied, but he couldn't deny it because it was all around the room. And he said, "Do you realize you can make a living making things?" And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes." He said, why don't you investigate it? The prop making, the theatre world, the film world, they make stuff all the time. He said, "I think you'd be really good at it." And he walked out, changed my life. One statement. And I bring that up because there are many times in life where somebody, somewhere, who I've respected, has just said one comment or done one small action, boom, completely changed the way that my life went. And I'd like to say all those cases in a positive way. But I think that's the very first thing. All of us have a power to influence someone else. So we've got to be very, very careful what we say around other people because you never know how they take it. That singular sentence, I thank him to this day, and that was over 40 years ago. Every time I see him, I say, thank you so much for doing that. Anyway, I resigned from the Royal Navy, went into the prop making industry for the theatre, did put on shows like Phantom of the Opera. Well, that was the most famous show that we put on. We did it for West Ends and stuff. And then in the early 90s, I'd learnt how to become an inventor. So I then started my own company, late 90s, making products for corporate event away days. So the companies would go away and do an activity. So all those activities were my invention and I was able to make them. I then merged with another company who was one of my biggest clients in in 2005. And we built a very successful business, a team building business over the ensuing 10, 15 years. Not without its ups and downs, as is the case with all, I was going to say proper business, because this was now a proper business, it wasn't just me involved, there was a whole team of us. I think we got up to about 20 at one stage. And then in 2016, late 2015, my finances were not in a good state. I was talking to my neighbour when she asked how things are going, and I said, well, I'm a bit worried about my money. We'll come back to why that was later on in this conversation, if that's okay. And she said, well, have you heard of Airbnb? And I said, of course I have, and gave her a lecture. And then when I finished, paused for breath, she said, well, have you thought of doing it then? You can earn some extra money, and you've been talking about renting out your spare room for as long as I've known you, which is 10 years, and you've never done it. Well, one of those actions that had happened that was pivotal to this story is my uncle, under the Christmas tree, had given me cash, £500. I was hugely embarrassed. I was in my mid-50s, and to think that someone thought I needed charity was very embarrassing. Okay, maybe I did, but no need to point it up,
Under the Christmas tree.
Under the Christmas tree in front of everybody. But bless him, because it was that gift in that way, I wanted to do something special with that money, not just pay off a bit of credit card debt, because that would make £2.50 difference. I wanted to multiply this money, and I didn't know how. And when my neighbour said, you've been talking about your spare room not done it. The reason it wasn't rented out is because it needed to be overhauled. It needed to be redecorated, all the furniture changed, new carpets and so on. I had £500 to do it with. So that January 2016, I did all that. And at the end of the month, listed the room, and beginning of my Airbnb career started. So now I'm a live-in host. And in 2016, at the end of 2016, we had to make a few changes on the board of directors because the company was out of control financially. And then in March 2017, me and my remaining business partner, because there were three of us, unfortunately, one of the three decided he was more equal than the other two, which didn't work, which is why the company got into trouble. He was focusing on getting rid of us rather than running the company. That's my interpretation. And in 2017, in April 1st, it wasn't an April Fool, but we had to liquidate the company because we couldn't pay the wages. Now, that was rather dramatic because overnight, £400,000 worth of personally guaranteed debt clicked onto our shoulders, joint and several, and we had to buy the company back from the liquidators in order to have something with which to trade our way out of that. So we had to find another £100,000, which we had to borrow from family and friends. So basically overnight, we were £500,000 in debt, personally guaranteed.
So can I pause you here for a second? So someone who came from career in the Navy, not necessarily that aspired to do, but fallen into, right, because of the school, then going into theatre production, then starting to creating their own business, which then was very successful, and it was a partnership, right?
Yes.
There was a three. So tell us more about that time, how it's all started, how you came up with the idea. Was it straight away you went into partnership, or you joined two partners? How did your partnership form in the first place? Because from experience, partnerships can be a great situation for the business, but also can be detrimental. And in most cases, sadly, the ones I encountered hasn't been great endings, right? It's all kind of happy marriage at the start, but actually never been ending up a happy story. So what was your how you formed that threesome?
Well, when I started, I literally had an idea for an event. Actually, no. Let's go back a bit. When I decided to make a transition into something else, I'd learnt the skills, but I was looking for another industry to apply the skills of making things in order to be the inventor that my 6-year-old brain wanted me to be, and my passion was. I was looking around for something, and I answered an advert to say, crew required for corporate events. Well, I didn't know what a corporate event was, so I rang up and said, what's one of them? They said, come along and we'll show you. So I turned up to the interview, and they said, yeah, right, start on Monday, £30 a day, start at 5, get home at 11. This was 97 or something, 1997, something like that. Anyway, so I absolutely love the concept. The fact of people coming along, having fun with all this fun kit, whatever it was, and then going away on a high. And it was fun for us to actually deliver that. Well, that was my experience. But I looked at what was being actually delivered, and I thought, it could be so much better. They've paid £3,000 for rolling a ping pong ball down some rolled up newspaper. What? Oh, no. It's all to do with the concept. It's not the actual kit. And I was thinking, I don't agree with that. It really needs to be something that if you spend £7,000 for an afternoon, you want your team walking away going, wow, rather than really. So I had the opportunity with this company to make a product. And based on the board game Mousetrap, I don't know if you're familiar with one thing hits another, things, a chain reaction of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I took that principle where thereby everybody's involved. Every part is integral to the success of the outcome. Well, what's the business? Exactly that. So it's a great illustration, and you could put all sorts of different dynamics into it. Color blindness, for instance. Only if you're colorblind can you solve this puzzle. Well, colorblind is normally seen as an obstacle. No, let's make it a positive. And if you want to see it, you've got to put a filter in front of your eyes in order to see it. So you empathize because you're both looking at the same thing and you're both right, but it's different. Stuff like that. So all these dynamics going into this event. It was a hugely successful event. I thought, hang on a minute, I've just been paid £4.50 to make this. I think I've done something wrong here. I should have cracked a better deal. So I looked at what worked really well. I looked at where the failings were. And then I left that company and went and made my own event called Hell's Bells. only because it had chimes in it and it rhymed and was sort of catchy, doesn't mean anything. Which again was 12 objects and it told a story. It had a heart and masses of different challenges to cater to loads of different people. And it was hugely successful. I think we've turned over something like, I don't know, £3 million with that product over the last 20 years.
So was that you built that company by yourself?
Yes.
Into 12 million?
Yes. I remember the first year I turned over £40,000. That was awesome. Second year I turned over £80,000. Amazing. Third year, I turned over £120,000. There seemed to be a pattern here. I thought, wow, awesome. And then one of my clients was some guys that I really got on very well with. They left their parent company. They were employees, set up their own business in 2001. We worked really closely together. And then 4 years later, they said, look, you're really good at making stuff. We're really good at selling stuff. And I agreed with them because I wasn't really good at selling it. And they weren't really good at making it, but they had the imagination to make stuff, but didn't have the facility. So the marriage was really, really good. And it was, Julia, it really was a really good collaboration. And in 2000...
To get yourself to, let's say, like you said, 40,000, 80,000, consistently increasing up without this marketing company or salespeople, that's quite impressive.
Oh, thank you. I can't remember exactly the details of how I did. I think word of mouth went out. People passed the message on.
So you were facilitating the games?
Yes. Yeah. So I was everything. I was inventor, creator, builder. I had a small team of students who are really passionate about making stuff as well. I found a team. And this is another thing, Julia, I found out over and over again over the last 40 years. When you know what it really, really is that you want and you're passionate about it and you put it out, the universe will supply. But it won't until you do that.
Clarity, yeah, that's for sure. That's one thing I always preach and teach. It's clarity. If you don't know where you're heading, you're going to end up elsewhere, right?
Yeah, no one's going to get on the bus.
Nope, absolutely.
No.
So at what point you had that tipping? Because there are lots of entrepreneurs that listening to this who maybe just started their own journey and building quite well. And you probably remember those days when you had to wear 101 hats in the business. Like you said, finance department, sales, delivery, customer service, like inventor. At what point you start to think, actually, I need help and I need to hire people? Because I think that's the pivotal point. And I'm finding working with clients that it's chicken and egg situation, right? And lots of them struggling to. So what was your experience in this?
I think I would have carried on if I hadn't found these people because I was enjoying all aspects of it. It was feeding me sufficiently. I was being fulfilled because I was being creative, which was my passion. But when the invitation came, I just suddenly thought, right, this is amazing because now I can drop all those to a team that I trust because I'd worked with them. And now there will be funds available on a much bigger scale to actually create what I want to create. And I had a relationship with a company up in Scotland and I had made a copy of Hell's Bells under a different name. It was the same mechanics. It was just dressed differently, which I sold under license. And actually, I'm still receiving royalties for it to this day. And they commissioned us to make another event based on corporate social responsibility. Well, I think the development cost was something like, at that time, £40,000 just for this product. That was just the development costs. And we said to that company, listen, instead of paying us such that we make a profit, we will only charge you what it costs, but you give us the right to use the game for ourselves because we really like it, and we will make our profit from this endeavor from our success or not as how we market it. And they said yes, because we are far enough away from each other, Scotland and London. I
love them because like you spotted an opportunity, right? I always talk about create your own opportunities. If you think like there is all the doors shut and there is nothing available to you, just go and create it, right? And like what you just said, it's pure example. When you thought so creative, probably at that point you thought I need £40,000 funds to create this game, but I'm short of funds, as we all are as business owners. And you spotted this opportunity, the way you position that, I think there is a power in that, like never kind of give up, because I always also say in any impossible situation, there are 3 exits. You just need to think about them. And you aspire to be quite a creative person. And I can see this now as a thread, right? Throughout your journey, you always found a way. So,
well, it's something I say to entrepreneurs now. My partner has just written a book. Okay, very exciting. It's been picked up by a Hollywood producer, so they're pitching later this month to the studios, which is just a dream coming. It hasn't come true yet, but it's coming true. And early on, he said, "Well, I need a cover for this, but I haven't got any money to commission someone to make a cover." I said, people do not do things just for money. Money is one commodity. It is one tool you can use to get things done. There are many, many other reasons why people do it. They do it because they feel passionate about the project and want to be involved. They do it because they want to say thank you to you for something. They do it because they just see someone who deserves to be helped. They do it because they've always wanted to do something like this, and they do it because they're going to get educated while they do it through your experience. There's loads of reasons. And within 24 hours, I had an artist who did a beautiful cover for him. I said, there you go. And he went, oh, and that was because I had employed the artist 15, 20 years earlier and given him his first job. And basically, he's now one of the top scenic artists in the film industry. And when that came to light, he said, and it's all thanks to you, because you gave me the opportunity to express. Well, I had these wacky ideas. I need an artist to make them real. I never had an ordinary job for him to do. And he always made them beautifully and interpreted the brief so well. So I'm not at all surprised that he's one of the top industry things. And that's about adding value to other people when it comes back. So never be afraid to help someone, even if you think they don't appreciate it. Something will come back. And you don't know when, you don't know how.
Absolutely.
So I think I didn't answer your question, but there's yeah. So I think the final bill for that particular game I was talking about earlier on about the corporate social responsibility was £50,000, of which we footed about 10 of it for our copy. So
so your partnership, you said it was formed in a way that you were quite successful in what
Yes.
you were doing. Your ex-client speciality was sales, marketing. You've seen an opportunity that you can focus on what you're doing best, and they're doing the best. So you form equal partnership. How did you?
Yes.
What about?
There was a slightly bit more to that formula that you just outlined there, Julia, and that is that their why was aligned with my why. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. I started doing what I was doing because I perceived that the quality of what was out there was dramatically poor. And I wanted to create the best games in the industry where people walked out and create that wow factor. That was exactly the same philosophy that the other company that I aligned with or merged with had as well. They had exactly the same independently. So that was the magic that glued the whole thing together. And does that answer your question?
So there was like two of you, right, as a partners, and was it equal?
There were four at the time, and we were all equal. Yes, equal shareholders. And
so how other three came or other four came? Sorry,
right. So there were three of them, and I joined them and became the fourth.
Okay.
Fourth, and then one of the guys was a native Frenchman, and he decided he wanted to go back to France to educate his child and all that. So he left. Then there were three of us, and we were equal shareholders.
So did you do merger and acquisition with two of your companies? Or
yeah, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was very, I want to say, casual. I mean, it was very straightforward, nothing complicated about it. We just merged, put everyone under one umbrella, and we had two sites, the original one that they were at and the one that we're still at now, which has been there for 21 years or something. No, 2001. Yes. So we went through all sorts of different hardships. We had the recession of 2008. That was spiritual.
Enlighten us, please. What do you mean by that?
Well, suddenly everything dried up. Overnight, the tap on the sales just stopped because corporate world just drew in its horn saying, well, there's a huge recession on. We haven't got any money to spend on on anything. And all our advisors were saying, guys, you're insolvent. You need to liquidate. We were £100,000 in debt. And the MD refused to accept that. And it was a huge lesson and very exhilarating to watch. He was just like a terrier with a bone. The bank was saying, no, guys, we can't lend you any more money because you're insolvent. And he said, I want to talk to your bank manager. This is not acceptable. And so we went into the bank with the manager and his sidekick. We brought with us our accountant and we said, right, this is what we've done. We've consolidated this. We have cut this. We are doing this. We have got this. We are marketing this. We are doing this. We're doing this. Action, 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 action. And I remember it now. The bank manager turned to our accountant and said, is this true? Like she's going to say no, but it was true. And she just said, yes, it is. And they said, okay, would you like 150,000? We said, no, thank you. Just 100. But that year we did 52 showcases, one a week, around venues and potential clients and agents who dealt with team building, so on. We did 52, relentless. And in 2009, we had the best year ever. It just went bang.
Tell me more. So you obviously, like you said, in a time when the budgets dried up, banks were making people redundant, and I was one of them twice, working in banking industry. And, you managed to not only sustain your business and not only get a business loan, but actually smash it as well. So what was the secret formula, right? I'm sure everyone is like, tell us, what did you do?
Well, without specifically stating exactly what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say what I'm about to say is as a result of COVID, where we had an advisor who said, double your marketing. Everyone else is pulling their horns in. Double your marketing. The way we doubled our marketing was we did these showcases. So we'd go and do freebies all over the country. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive to some venue somewhere, run an event for some random company and come back. Now, I'd love to share a story with you as to what a result of that activity was. I was at Theobald's Park, which is a hotel near Hoddesdon, and we were doing an event for Caribbean cruises or something. And one of our staff came up to me and said, why are we doing that? They are purely here just for a freebie. They have no intention ever of booking us. So why are we wasting our time doing that? And I looked at him and I said, you have not heard the conversation I have just heard from the sales manager of this hotel. She said, we were talking about you at our last get-together of all the chain managers. You guys just keep turning up. Whether there's 3 inches of snow or a heat wave, you guys keep turning up. Now, we've got Tesco on site as their HQ training grounds. I'd love to introduce you to the head trainer there because I think you could do some business there. Bang. And we got the Tesco account.
Fantastic.
If we had not been turning up, showing with commitment, if we had been making excuses, there's a bit of snow, we're not coming because we're not getting paid anyway, that wouldn't have happened. And the guy who was our sales guy at the time was determined to get the other account at Broxbourne. And so he went and said, can I come and do a showcase in the foyer as your clients come in? And they said no. He said, well, can I set up a stall in your car park then? So as people come through from the car park, we can give them our card. They said, yeah, okay. So every Wednesday, week after week after week, every Wednesday, he was there with 1 or 2 of our sales girls going, hi, hi, and people would walk around and avoid them. I don't know, it's something like 6 or 7 weeks they were doing that. And then on the 8th week, it was raining. So one of the guys inside the foyer said, come on then, it's raining, you can come into the building. They went into the building, bang. Persistence, yeah. And also what you're describing, I call it omnipresence, where you are everywhere all of a sudden, the perception of you being everywhere. Like you said, persistent, consistency. So people, and the other most common thing, people know you for the first time only after 11 times they've seen you. Exactly.
So I love that story. So like resilience and persistence, even though, like you said, it's so easy to be drawn down by the news, negativities, economy, whatever's going outside, you're just like writing your own destiny. You're not taking no for the answer. You just go and doing it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And exactly the same thing happened during the liquidation, right? And if anyone's struggling out there, there were some key rules, I would say, or lessons that I would share, and I do share when it's appropriate, about how we coped with that situation. So £500,000 in debt, in 2017. Yeah.
So how did you get, like we just talked about your success point during 2008. We're missing a chunk of your story, how it's all ended up being in liquidation. So yes, brief us in. So you formed this amazing partnership. It's all going well.
Yes.
What happens next?
Well, with the best year ever in 2009, and it's really, I'll share a funny anecdote. I was talking to one of our staff. Bearing in mind, I came from 40,000, 80,000, right, those beginnings, and I was talking about, we were looking about doing some dynamic in a new creation, and I was saying to him, look, I'm really sorry, Chris. The problem is we've only turned over £1 million this year. And then I listened to myself and I said, I'm so sorry. That must have sounded terrible. Only, I never believed I would have put the word only and £1 million in the same sentence. But I looked at him and I said, but that's the truth. Yes, the problem was, and this has happened, history has repeated itself. After that huge success, guess what one does? Rest on your laurels and stop the activity that created it. Suddenly, boom, everything slumps again.
Yeah, become too comfortable.
Absolutely. Complacency. Absolutely. A porpoise, as I think the expression is. So that's what happened going into 10-11. In 2011, we joined up with an international group of companies, and which had brought with itself new challenges and new horizons.
How did you join that group? As a separate entity, as a part of?
It was how does it described? We shared it. We had a common. We could all the participants all around the world can use their games and IP and share the IP and the activities and the experience around the rest of the world. So if someone has a really good game, a really good activity, or a really good concept, then everyone else can use it, and any success from there, there's a royalty payment that goes into the holding company's pot, and then they distribute it out from there, having taken their cut back. So that's how that worked essentially. Those are fun times. We had all sorts of exciting new products come into the fold, which were from abroad. Then we had, what happened in the 20, right, yes. So then in 2014, the MD decided that I could retire. I'd be paid from dividends only. And my other colleague would follow shortly, because he's about 15 years younger than me. Well, that's very enticing, isn't it? So for the whole of 2014, I basically retired.
So was it by your choice, or were you made? How was this?
Sort of. I mean, it's always been my ambition, and to come at the in my early 50s. Well, that's amazing. Don't have to wait till I'm 60 plus. Anyway, I was a bit casual with the whole thing, and I didn't realise that actually I was being paid with a director's loan.
Oh no!
Not out of dividends. So at the end of the year, there were no dividends. And so suddenly my director's loan had to be paid back. And so it transpired that I'd been funding myself in a fool's paradise, I call it, that year. And I take full responsibility for that, because I was casual and I didn't keep my eye on the ball and didn't understand what I was doing. But I was not pleased, as you can imagine. I am pleased to say that over the subsequent couple of years, there were adjustments made to how I was reimbursed, and actually I did recover that money, but very slowly. And that was because the third party fought my battle as well. Bearing in mind it's his dividends that were being affected in the whole equation as well. But then in the 2016, we started to smell, me and my business partner of late started to smell that something was wrong. We could not quite place what it was. The MD was a very, very clever politician. And he managed to hide the fact that the company was losing £20,000 a month, and had been for a year by the end of 2017. No, I get my 16s and 17s. 2016. When he moved on at our request, insistence, we then discovered that we'd been losing £20,000 a month for over a year.
Can I ask you a question here? Because for like in your story, for someone who experienced 2008 crash, and like you said, he was like a dog with a bone, right, fighting, to now covering this all up, and not. So what has happened there? I'm curious.
I don't know. It intrigues me. I still don't know that. I don't know. Is it an onset of greed? Is it an onset of ego? Is it a dictatorship decision? Did he see us as the company was now a nice place where he'd like to take it all over? Because that's certainly the impression that we got, that he wanted it all for himself. He actually demanded that we handed over some of our shares for nothing, so that he had majority shareholding, so that he could run the company he wanted to, and we wouldn't interfere and hold him back. Well, we didn't go through with that.
And would you say all this started to happen after you joined this international?
Well, it did, but I don't think that triggered it. I think kids needed to be educated and wanted to be done privately,
like personal financial pressures.
I perceive possibly, and this was a solution, was to take over the whole company. So that's my interpretation. Obviously, I've never asked the question bluntly, and the person isn't here to defend himself, but that's certainly the impression that both of us got. And we simply suggested he step down. We had another MD in with different experience to recover the company, but his ego couldn't take it. So he then tried to sue us for this, that and the other, unfair whatevers, and that absorbed £75,000 worth of fees with the legal teams to keep it out of court, and that's what tipped the balance when we couldn't afford to pay the, which was really sad, because if you'd just gone and said, guys, I don't agree with what you've done, but look, let's just lick our wounds for a bit, and then I'd really like to work with you. I'll set up my own company. Will you supply me and do that? We'd have said yes. Heaven's sake, we've known the guy for the last 20 years. I mean, he wasn't a nasty person, but obviously after what did play out, barge poles were out. So
isn't that interesting? Like, you put so much trust into your partnership, especially like you said, 20 years. That's a long period. You know, you went through a lot as a business owners as well together, right? You put your heads together, you navigated, and then to come to that must be very devastating.
Well, it was what it was. We were in a hole. We had to do something about it. So basically, me and my business partner, we just knuckled down and said, right, okay, what do we do now? Now, in the background of all this, I had my house full of guests through Airbnb. So I've got 7 spaces that I rent out in the house. It's just it was a 3-bedroom detached house, just to put it into context. So anywhere I can put a bed, I did, because I needed every spare bit of money. I was running the business 100% myself, as well as recovering the other one. And that was the best thing ever, because not only did it give me a backup income, and the expression is dig the well before you need the water, and I needed the water, but also when I came back home, I had to focus on the well-being of others, and I could not afford to sit in a corner and suck my thumb and feel sorry for myself. Because if I did that, they'd all run. 2017, the summer of 2017 should have been the worst summer of this decade. It was the best because of my Airbnb guests. If I was to choose to talk about what was going on at work to some of my regulars, because I had a few regulars who came every week, I chose to find the funny side of stuff that was going on, the absurd, the ridiculous, and have a good laugh. I needed to entertain them. And in so doing, it took the sting out of it for me, because I was forced to look for the funny side of what was going on. More than that, Julia, when I was saying I was telling one of my guests who's been with me for a couple of years on a weekly basis, arrived Monday, left Friday. And I was saying to her, well, we need to find another £100,000 now, because we've got to buy the company back. And she said, I'll lend you £10,000. I said, what? You're my guest. I can't possibly accept that. She said, why not? It's not doing any good to me sitting in the bank at 0. whatever it is % interest. Might as well help you. I said, no, I can't. We said, if you change your mind, let me know. So I did. A few weeks later, I said, I've changed my mind. So she said, great. She transferred £10,000 into my account. I said, right, I'm going to give you 5% interest on this. She said, no, you're not. I said, why not? Because it's not earning me. Why should I benefit from your disaster? She said, pay it back when you can. I said, okay, no, I can't take it for nothing. She said, okay, you can give me a week of free nights. I said, okay, that's 5 free nights. She said, no, I'm only here for 3 days a week, so it's just 3 days a week. Three free days. I said, you're lending me £10,000 for 3 days free accommodation? She said, yes. I said, you're incredible. Thank you so much. Now, would you like a contract or anything, or personal guarantee or anything? She said, no, we'll just keep a piece of paper and we'll just run it. Every time I come here, we'll just knock it down. And if you've got any spare cash, then just hand it over. That's fine. So for something like 15 months, we just wrote that down that £10,000. And when I gave her the final bit of money, I said to her, why did you do that? And she said, because when I heard what was going on and I knew what you were going through, and here's the crutch, when I saw what you were doing, you were working every hour you could. You changed every space you could to make a bed to bring income. You were up at 6 o'clock in order to make this work. You were up until midnight to make this work. You go and sleep in the garden so that you have an extra bed to make money. Anyone who's prepared to do that, I knew I was going to get my money back. I'm not just going to fund more pity party. I'm going to fund that action. I went, wow, I had no idea. But what a great lesson I learned from her as to her observation. And that's where one of my favorite talks when I have kids coming through from university, one of my favorite talks is, listen, there's an expression, knock on the door and it will be open unto you. Let me tell you this. And I go over to the kitchen door, and they're in the middle of the kitchen, and I go over to the kitchen. I said, you could do this. And I just stand there looking at the door. And then I look at them with a smile and say, what's going to happen? And they say, nothing. And I said, exactly. Now, what's going to happen now? And they said, it's going to open. I said, no, not necessarily, but you're taking action. And when you take action, you're worth watching. The catch is you don't know who is watching you. I said time and time again, when I've been doing this, knocking on this door, it's that door over there that opened for me. And I never knew that door existed. But I know one thing, that door would never have opened if I hadn't been worthy of them opening it for me by taking the action that I did. And that's how I explain how the £10,000 came into my account from this lady. I was taking action. I did not know that door existed. She opened it for me and gave it. And that principle has happened numerous times in my life. So
I love that. I love that. Yeah, like in a moment when you're on your knees, right? In a moment where you think nothing is possible, there is no answer to this, but you just keep going. You're taking action. Like you said, people might maybe even laugh at you. Don't believe. You don't even maybe believe into yourself right in that moment, but if you keep taking action, you just never know who watches you.
Yes.
Love that.
And that goes back to what I just said at the beginning, which is people will do stuff for reasons far beyond that of money. One of the great things about being an inventor is you can invent anything. When you can invent anything, you need a whole multiple, or you can utilize a multiple array of skills. And so when I talk to anybody, subconsciously, I'm trying to find out what their skill is, what's their passion. And when I know that, I then going, how can I harness that? How can I add value to you? How can I give you an opportunity for making something for me, potentially? How can I add value to you by putting you in touch with someone else, recommending a good book, giving you a piece of advice, pointing you in the right direction? But until you tell me what your passion is, I can't. And that happened. This principle is what saved us during COVID, because in 2020, we were still £300,000 in debt, and we're an live events company, and suddenly you're not even allowed to shake the hands of your neighbours next door. So how on earth are we going to survive? Well, that Christmas 2019, just in the autumn of 2019, my niece brought her then boyfriend round to show off to the family. We were having a family do here at the house. I talked to him, find out what he's a geek, okay? Programming geek, early 20s. Well, I was desperately thinking, how can I help you? How can I help you? Well, I couldn't. Principle number one is add value to others. That's what I was trying to do. Principle number two is exchange contact details. So I exchanged contact details with him. Because I did that, I got a call at Christmas. Can I drop over some presents so that you can take them to the family when you go over to the Cotswolds? I said, sure. He came over, and I said, I was still thinking, I really want to help this guy. How can I do it? So I said, stay for dinner. So he said, okay. So I cooked him a meal, and before we started, I said, look, I've got an empty hotel here because no one's here. You stay the night, then you can have a drink. He said, okay. So then I really said, tell me in detail what you do. Geek, no reason. I'm a plywood man. I make stuff out of plywood. He makes stuff out of pixels. So I couldn't find a match until April 2020 when the events industry stopped. What did I need? A geek. I rang him up and said, John, I've got an idea for an online activity concept. We don't have any money. Would you be willing to do it on a profit share? And he said, yes. He made this amazing program, which is an online website that is unbelievably clever. He proved himself, was the point. And he then said, John, we'd like to pay you now, but can you create an event online in Zoom rooms based on the concept of family fortunes as an online activity? Yeah, no problem. He did that. It worked amazingly. I then said, could you do Cluedo online where everybody, yes, we did that. And he made that program work. Can you do a treasure hunt online? Yes, he can do. And we did showcase after showcase after showcase of these events, these activities that John created. And in October 2020, we had 3 events in the books between then and Christmas. Now, if you're employing 5 people, that's not good. But we had been doing showcase after showcase after showcase. Seems to be a pattern here. Okay. Second lockdown was announced. And in the first 3 weeks of December 2020, we did 132 events online. We turned over £340,000 in 3 weeks. We did drop the ball on about 5% of it because it was just manic. And we basically got our £500,000 debt down to 60,000.
Wow.
I borrowed 30,000 from my sister. My business partner borrowed 30,000 from a mate. We cleared it and made it from aggressive debt, as I called it, down to friendly debt, and then paid off. Actually, there's an even better story. I got to the point where I said, I've just got to pay my sister off. I've just got to pay. So I remortgaged my house at the lowest possible interest rate that was on the table. And the next month it went bang. So yes. So if I hadn't had that money to repay her,
Someone been watching you from the side, right?
I would not have remortgaged at that point. So, yes. And John, by the way, 5 years later, is still working for the company as a freelancer. That initial investment of no pay, I think we paid him £50 in commission because that first activity never took off. Although brilliant though it was, it never actually gelled. But he has earned tens of thousands of pounds from his association. And that's all because he came around in August. And I look further back, Julia, if I may just carry on a tiny bit.
Yes, please.
And that is, why is it that my niece felt comfortable to show him off and bring him around? Well, she was brought up in Africa. And when she came over for secondary schooling at the age of 13, she was obviously away from home because parents were out in Africa. And I made a decision every year, my niece and my nephew, every year for 1 day a year, I would go to their place of education to make them feel special, add value to them. I was the only member of the family who did that. It was noticed. Therefore, of course, she would want to show off her boyfriend to me because she felt comfortable to. If I hadn't, I'd just be
another uncle, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. So never underestimate the power of adding value to. I once heard it. How do people feel when they leave you? Better about themselves or worse about themselves? It's your choice and both are easy to do. And I heard that and thought, that's a very good point. Everybody who leaves my presence is going to be feeling better about themselves. Because when they do that, and you can just say thank you as you leave the till. Thank you for your smile. It's really made my shopping experience great. I really appreciate it. Bye. It can be the world to that person. You've added value to them. I mean, that's at the very, very, if you don't feel you've got anything to add value. So, that applies throughout life.
Amazing. I love all your stories and key learning points from it. Is this company still up and running? So you exited, right?
Yes.
You sold it?
I sold out 2 years ago. Yes, the company is still running. Yes, it is. And in fact, my now ex-business partner comes and lodges with me about 3 times a month. So I hear all the gossip. Keep up to date with what is going.
So he's still in it.
Yes. Yeah, he owns it outright now. So, yes.
Amazing. I love this. Well, Neil, thank you so much. The key learning points I can pick up from your stories, definitely keep actioning, keep knocking that door because you never know who is watching. Creativity is the key. That was a theme. And obviously being inventor, that just was your theme. And especially, with the story of even this lady, right, lending you £10,000, you just never knew, right? No. Where's money coming from? You just shared the story and, it just came. And also just leaving people in a better place before they came into your field, because again, you just never know when it's going to come back, how it's going to affect them and what impact you made on them, which absolutely brilliant. I love those. Those is the key principle I think that anyone should adopt. But also, those are key pillars that help you to navigate all those challenges and being positive, right? Like you said, you turned that story absolutely on its head, coming back home and finding comedy in it, finding funny stories, sharing that with other people, just puts you in such a different frame of mind and different mindset, right? Because otherwise you can be running in circle. You can turn yourself into negative ball, and it's so easy to be drowned in it, which obviously you've done quite opposite. So thank you very much for sharing that and being honest.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Yay. And before we're going to wrap up, I would love to ask you, I guess, a question.
Yes.
What would you say will be defining moment in your life that made you to who you are today?
I was at a seminar when I was 21. I was talking about this the other day, actually. There was a company called EST, EST, Air Standard Training. I don't know if you've heard it. It was a very 80s thing. And I heard about it and I went on that. And the one major thing that I took away from that is the simple concept: nobody's going to do it for you. That at the age of 20, when I heard that, I went, light bulb moment. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
I hope I need to hear. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. If you want to follow Neil and maybe even experience being a guest in his property, yes, you can see that he's an amazing host, right? Not just hosting you, but definitely will be an experience of positivity and leaving you in a better place. There will be all the social media links shared with this podcast. And what will be the best way for people to reach out to you if they would like to?
On Instagram, probably. DM me on Instagram.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Can I just tell one more story?
Of course, come on.
I was in Waitrose, this is probably about 8 years ago. I was in Waitrose, waiting in the queue at the conveyor belt. And there was an elderly lady in front of me. She must look like she's about 80. And I was looking at her thinking, do you know what? I've always wanted to lift the barrier up and say, I'll pay for that because I can. And a little voice in my head said, do it, do it, do it. So I did. I lifted up the barrier and said, Madam, I would like to pay for that. She had about 4 or 5 things, and I had a great huge bunch. She looked up at me and said, oh, that's very kind of you. She said, in that case, you better use my staff discount card, hadn't you? And the value of the discount was far greater than the value of her goods.
Really?
Yes.
You see, it's just like proving another point. You just never know who's watching, right?
Yes. I haven't tried it a second time. I think I'll leave on that one.
You don't push your luck too much.
No.
Oh, Neil, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.